It is the show that was anticipated to be the biggest show of the summer, but instead it ended up being the worst show ever created. Hello, I'm Stacy and welcome to the channel. Despite watching episode 1 of The Idol and thinking it was such a poorly written show, I still had hope and decided to watch episode 2. The full series has been out for quite some time and it seems like the episodes that followed didn't improve much because the general consensus remains that this show is really bad. Honestly, I still can't believe that this went through all the processes of production and was given a green light. However, I have seen some comments mentioning that episode 2 was better than the rest. Let's see how episode 2 was better. If you haven't seen my first video talking about The Idol episode 1, feel free to watch that video first. I'll link it in the description box below or somewhere on the screen. Before we even start with episode 2, there are so many things that still bother me about episode 1. First of all, half of that episode was dedicated to one scene, and that was the photoshoot scene. Despite all that time allocated to that scene, there were no real ramifications in connection to the problems that were highlighted. The compromising photo of the main character being leaked was built up to be such a huge issue. But in the end, we never saw Jocelyn suffer any kind of ramifications because of it. Her career remained the same mess it was communicated to be from the beginning. In addition, the breach of contract was communicated to be such a huge issue, but in the end, nothing came of it. They breached the contract, they locked the guy in the bathroom, but after that, that story just dies. Perhaps this will be addressed in future episodes, but if not, it does seem like a disappointing conclusion, simply because of how dramatized those storylines were. Episode 1 was roughly 1 hour, so that is a long time to build up on certain storylines, only to have the conclusion be so quick or not there at all. Anyway, back to episode 2. Episode 2 picks up from the last scene in episode 1. Episode 1 ended with that bizarre studio session with Tedros and Jocelyn. Despite all the shenanigans that happened, they did actually record some music. In episode 2, Jocelyn calls her team to her house so she can play the music that she created. She made a remix of her new single release, World Class Sinner.
Okay, who knows why we've been summoned?
Jocelyn says she's found her new sound.
Oh, okay. What about the sound we created for her?
As her team is waiting, they start talking about Jocelyn, and the conversation that unfolds is such a dehumanizing one. But for once, it honors the premise of the show, and it is not there just for the shock value.
You guys are enabling her. There's obviously something a bit off. Not all oars are in the water.
Mother died.
So my mother's dead? Is your mother alive?
It is an appalling conversation, but it adds value to the narrative or what the narrative has been communicated to be. It does reinforce the idea of how an artist can be viewed as an industry machine, dehumanized and only seen as a product for profit. Despite this being a fictional story, it is believable and possibly something that does reflect the entertainment industry. So, Jocelyn plays her remix of World Class Sinner. I can't play the song because no copyright is about to get me, but Enjoy My Debut was the next Adele, covering the song World Class Sinner. My version will be available on Spotify and Apple Music at the end of the year, so look forward to it and also look forward to me winning my first Grammy. I'm just a freak, yeah, you know I want it bad, and we can meet. Yeah, but I don't need to know your name. 'Cause you're dumb, but you're cute, and it's a good enough ratio. That is it. This may never make it into this video.
Stop it. Get some help.
From episode 1, we know that she doesn't like the single that she's about to release. She doesn't like the lyrics and she thinks they are shallow and not a true or genuine representation of the kind of singer she wants to be. But it does seem like the remix she made with Tedros is something that she feels more connected to. Sadly, her team doesn't agree with her. At this point, we don't know much about Tedros, but we know enough to pick up that he's a sleazy character. Despite that, I kinda thought that they would make something really nice, but her team is justified in not liking the song, except for Nikki, her record label executive. Sure, the song is terrible, but Nicki is so brutal with how she tells Jocelyn.
Remember when your mother got sick? It was Finkelstein and I. We came to you and we said we should cancel that tour. And you said no. Nicki, don't. Please. I can do it. Trust me. And then a week before you're going to play Madison Square Garden, I get a call that you are out of your fucking mind, babbling, up on the roof, talking to, things in outer fucking space.
All right.
And now you're going to sit here and tell me that it's not me. I don't like it. Well, that's too bad. That train has left the station, and whether you like it or not, you are going for that ride. My suggestion to you, pure grateful.
This is a good start compared to what was shown in episode 1. This scene did highlight a problem that was worth talking about. Just because Nicki is her boss, it doesn't make it okay for Jocelyn to not have a say in how she presents herself to the world and also how she presents her work. Jocelyn storms off and tries to call Tedros, the one person that seems to believe in her vision, but he is unavailable. Thankfully, Haim steps in and decides to talk to Jocelyn and cheer her up. This conversation goes back to Jocelyn's mom, and here we get a bit of insight into her dynamic with her mom.
When I lost my mother, I was a wreck for a year. Of course, my mother was nice to me.
It seems like her mom may have been an abusive person, which does shed light into Jocelyn's character. From Haim's claims, we can gather that she had a very dependent relationship with her mom. Seeing as her mom was toxic, this was clearly not a healthy environment to be in for who knows how long. At some point, it was also revealed that she was a child star, so that means that she has had this kind of dynamic with her mom for a very, very long time, where the mom is the manager and the child is like the star or the talent. Growing up as an entertainer and constantly having that pressure of you have to produce great work from childhood, and then to add to that your mom is your manager, may have created a very intense dynamic. It does explain her past behavior. Some of her mannerisms do resemble those of a trauma bond like Stockholm Syndrome. Not that I'm an expert about this in any capacity, but these are just my thoughts. By definition, Stockholm Syndrome is a psychological condition that occurs when a victim of abuse identifies and attaches or bonds positively with the abuser. This syndrome was originally observed when hostages who were kidnapped not only bonded positively with their kidnappers but also fell in love with them. Professionals have expanded the definition of Stockholm Syndrome to include any relationship in which victims of abuse develop a strong, loyal attachment to the perpetrators of abuse. Her mom is gone now, but the effects of that relationship are still evident. For example, in episode 1, there's a scene where her team tells her about a compromising image that has just been leaked. Her reaction to the image is that it could be worse. I thought that reaction was so odd, but then somebody who has always been in a toxic environment may rationalize that such problematic occurrences are acceptable because a toxic environment is the only thing they're familiar with, and that is what is their normal. After thinking about it, that's the conclusion I came up with as to why a character that is intelligent and capable, despite the fact that she's not mentally stable, could be so accepting towards such a situation. Anyway, after that talk with Haim, Jocelyn goes back to the studio to edit her remix. At the same time, Tedros finally calls her back and he has a brand new attitude. Before, when she reached out, he was always available, but now all of a sudden he's very busy and feels comfortable enough to act a little bit entitled towards her music. I read somewhere that this is kind of the behavior of people who impact trauma on others. For example, in the beginning, he praises Jocelyn, he makes her feel very good and confident about her craft and her gift as a musician. And now when he becomes the person she wants to talk to regarding her music because he lifts her up, he is pulling away so that she can feel that distance and feel like she needs to be more dependent towards him. I read there's actually like steps to this kind of abusive situation from the abuser's perspective, and step 1 was to get that person to trust them. Now step 2 is to create distance so that they feel like they should depend on that relationship more. And I can't even remember what step 3 was, but there's like stages and levels to this thing. In the end, they agree to meet after Jocelyn shoots her music video, which is the scene that follows shortly after. The entire process of this shoot is a very bumpy one. Firstly, Jocelyn is super late to her shoot, and the reason why she is late is a serious cause for concern.
I just got a text message that the reason Jocelyn was 3.5 hours late is she was in a makeup trailer. They were having to airbrush cuts on her inner thighs.
When she sees the set for the first time, she doesn't like it, and this is despite the fact that she has been part of the decision-making process of how said set will look like. And this turns out to be the first sign that something is off. She then proceeds to become super obsessive about reshooting the first take. This is despite the fact that they already have good footage to work with. As expected, this does lead to emotions running high. At this point, Nikki is about ready to be done with Jocelyn, and amidst all this chaos, she has already spotted somebody who could replace Jocelyn. That would be none other than Diane, Jocelyn's backup dancer. Meanwhile, Destiny has been looking into Tedros, and she tells Haim what she found out about him.
His last place of residency was Hawaii, and then after that, he doesn't seem to exist.
We now know that he has had a lot of run-ins with the law, and he is somebody who is dangerous. Back to Jocelyn, no matter how hard she tries, she just can't get it together. The team does try to cheer her up, but at the end of it, they do decide it may be time to cut their losses. At a certain point, Jocelyn does start calling out to her dead mother, and that is a time where people decide it's time to call it a day. It is alluded that this is the first shoot she's doing without her mom, so it was bound to be a very heavy day for her. The thing is, every 10 seconds, it feels like this message is being repeated to us. So Jocelyn's relationship with her mom is clearly a significant part of this narrative. What I'm wondering is, if she had such a deep connection with her mom, why not include some flashbacks of that relationship so we can get a deeper sense of the story and understand the characters better? To me, it felt a little bit disconnected, how a significant chunk of this narrative goes into talking about this, yet at no point do we see a single glimpse into the dynamic of this relationship. Instead, we're just told about it, and mind you, these episodes are like 50 minutes long, so there was ample time to include a photo album or even just a simple picture on the wall. Just show us something instead of like talking about it the entire time. Also, we're like halfway through the episode and there have only been 2 major things happening. Jocelyn playing her song and this music video shoot that seems to have taken forever. I agree that there are more interesting things happening in this episode that are worthwhile, but at the same time, I think the pacing is such a drag. After what seems to be a very long time, we finally move on from the music video shoot, and Haim lets Jocelyn know that if she doesn't get her act together, she's gonna lose everything. After being told to get your act together or you're gonna lose everything, you would naturally invite the sleazy guy you met for 2 seconds to come over to your house for a party. So Tedros shows up with all these other people from his club. They all work for him, and from certain interactions, we already see that Tedros has an abusive relationship with them. He tortures them and they seem to feel the need to ask for permission to do certain things. At the same time, they do seem to think highly of him despite the fact that he does all these things. Jocelyn hasn't seen this aggressive side of Tedros yet, so maybe this is why she doesn't pick up on the red flags. It's like shifting from one abusive relationship with her mom to another. So these would be environments she's familiar with and has maybe rationalized them to be normal. At this point, the show goes from bad to worse. We see one of the worst adult scenes ever. You would think it wouldn't be shocking because this is a creation by Sam Levinson, but this scene reached new levels of disturbing. And if there was any doubt that this show was written solely for the male gaze, the last part of this episode was all the proof that was needed. Also, it should never be assumed that any girl would be okay with the nonsense portrayed in this show. And with that, I had reached my quota of how much more of The Idol I could watch. My overall thoughts are that they had such a great premise, but it doesn't seem like enough research was done to portray the underlying themes in a plausible and substantial manner. In addition to that, this series does prove the importance of having a balanced point of view and the substantial aftermath that can take place if this isn't prioritized. There are clear discrepancies when it comes to how the female characters behave, specifically Jocelyn, who is the main character. It kinda sucks that they missed their mark on what they set out to do, but it does seem like some good came out of it. These days, it does seem like Hollywood content likes to test the boundaries of what should be shown, especially when it comes to adult scenes. We have shows like Euphoria, which are targeted towards a younger demographic, but they are not exempted of this. So maybe this backlash could be Sam Levinson's sign and also Hollywood's sign to tone it down. Anyway, this is the end of my review of episode 2 of The Idol, and this will be my last video of The Idol because I gave up on watching that show. But if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and leave me a comment below.